and thank you for listening to Citizen Speak. My name is Garrett Martin. Thank you so much for listening today. So, the president just had his final State of the Union address, and I'm not going to spend time talking about how he had teleprompters or how this is just going to be a talk about his legacy or the color or the maker of Michelle Obama's dress. Let's talk about what he actually said. Now, before we begin there, in 2009, we had one of the worst economic recessions since the Great Depression. We had the housing bubble crash. We had the banking bubble pop. We had the auto industry fall hard. And since then, we've created 14.1 million jobs. And the unemployment rate today is around 5%. That's pretty impressive. And it's not just the president who has made this happen. I mean, we have Congress who have taken actions, but more importantly, the private sector has done amazing. And they've done really well under the administration of President Obama. Like it or not, that's what's happened. So, at the start, he kind of has his jesting against people who are campaigning and spending all their time in Iowa, mainly like Marco Rubio, who, if you watched it, you may have caught his face in there. He actually did make it to this event, unlike a lot of his votes that he's missed. But he starts off by saying that he hopes that Congress is going to help with the prescription drug abuse in this year. He hopes that Congress will help lower the amount of gun violence, or he wants to see better job growth in this coming year. All sorts of different things that we'll get into as we go along. But one of the things that President Obama says that he's going to push for this year, he doesn't want it to be just a lame duck year for him. He still wants to go out there and try to make a difference in his last year. Try to make a lasting impression for the better. And some of the things that he wants to fix are the gun violence that we have. With, I think, 372 mass shootings in 2015 alone. That's something that we need to fix. The immigration system that we have. Creating a easier path to receiving the citizenship instead of people living in fear and not coming forward and going down that path of citizenship. And he hopes to raise the minimum wage. Now, most of those things, if any of them, he won't get accomplished. We have the laziest Congress in U.S. history. And if he can get some of them passed or make some headway on any of them, I'd be surprised, to be honest with you. But one of the things that he goes on to say is, every time that we're told to fear the future, that we're told to fear change, we always overcome that fear. We always move past it. And I think that is a very strong message for the candidates who are running for president. The candidates who say that we need to fear the Muslims, or fear the immigrants coming in, or fear the refugees that are coming from Syria or other war-torn countries, they're going to be left in the past. They're going to be left in the annals of history. And that's all that there is to it. And one of the things that I hear a lot about is we don't have a lot of troops in Iraq or Afghanistan anymore. That's why ISIS is, surging. They're doing better just because of the media. They're not actually going out and taking a lot more land. In a lot of cases, they're actually receding. And one of the things that had popped up during the State of the Union address is that we have 14,000 troops still in Iraq and Afghanistan. Now, a lot of those are just holding down key points for us. They're not actually going out and doing missions or fighting off ISIS or Al-Qaeda. They're just basically showing presence and helping train Iraqi forces and the Afghan army. So, one of the other things is President Obama, he asks when we're presented with this question to fear the future, should we respond with fear or should we respond with confidence? And if we respond with fear, it goes against what we are as a nation, what we're founded on. But if we respond with confidence, then we know that we are more than just this hateful, fear-mongering people, that we are Americans. Sorry if my audio was a little off there. At the start, my microphone was not in the correct position. But as we go on in the State of the Union address, 4 questions President Obama had for the future. He says, number 1, how do we give everyone a fair shot? How do we give the average person an equal voice as the corporate hedge fund manager or the billionaire out there or the millionaire out there? How does the average person have that fair shot? How does somebody coming from poverty have the same opportunity to succeed as somebody who goes to an Ivy League school that was born into a rich family? Number 2, how do we make technology work for us and not against us? This is referring to climate change. How do we go from a dirty fuel source that is raising the temperature of the planet over time to go into something that is better for the planet, where we harvest the wind or the solar? How do we go from making technology hurt the planet to help us? Number 3, how to keep us safe but not be the police of the world. How to not go through and set up new nations around the world and help build up the ones that have crumbled, or go through and be everybody's nanny. How do we keep us safe and not be the police? Number 4, make politics reflect what's best in us, not what's worst in us. This is referring to people like Donald Trump, where if we vote for that type of rhetoric, if we vote for that kind of hatred and fear, that's going to lead us down a path that will turn us away from ourselves. So how do we get away from these politics where money drives elections? That's number 4. One of the really interesting things that President Obama says, and he had a graph up to show the numbers on it, but we have the longest streak of private sector job growth in history here in America. And that's impressive. That's one of the reasons why we have unemployment down at 5%, and that we have 4.1 million jobs created under President Obama. It's because both with the policies that President Obama has introduced and the work that Congress has done at the start of the presidency, we had a great framework to create this job growth. Now, part of the framework allows for the corporations to make record profits, and it allows for the average worker to stay stagnant. So one of the other neat things is, with the economy growing and we have so many jobs created, we've cut the deficit by 3/4. Now, I understand that a lot of people go, well, no, we still have trillions of dollars in debt, and that hasn't been cut down. No. What we are going to spend has helped reduce that deficit by 3/4, because we've cut out a lot of fat so far, and we've started to gain more taxes because the economy is doing better. So instead of having to shell out a bunch of money all the time for unemployment, or to give the Medicaid benefits or food stamp benefits, we've gotten people off of those programs. We've started to generate more money because of wind and solar, and we actually have more jobs in the solar industry now than we do in coal. Highly impressive. But one of the things that President Obama hopes to see in this year is that we give more tax cuts to the poor, to people who are working but don't have children. People just like you and I, everyday average people, instead of continuing to give tax cuts to the rich. We've found that the trickle-down economics policy just doesn't work. It leads to larger unemployment rates. It leads to more people being in the poor section of society. It leads to a smaller middle class. So one of the really great things about the crashed economy, and it leads to my point that I just made about trickle-down economics not working, is that it wasn't Medicaid that crashed the economy. It wasn't food stamps. It was the policies that basically the rich were able to create for themselves that had crashed the economy. And that's why we had found ourselves in the position that we were, because Wall Street was able to make their own rules and to play by them, and everybody else be damned. Now, workers and small businesses, they need a larger voice, not a smaller voice, President Obama said. And what he means by that is we need to get money out of politics. And we have this special way of looking at things where, oh, no. If we allow the rich to have less taxes, then we can create more jobs. Well, it doesn't work that way. If we focus more on the middle class and we focus more on small businesses, then we have found that our economy does better as a whole. And that's part of the reason why our economy is doing well now, is because we've opened the door for small businesses to succeed more now than they ever could under George W. Bush, than they ever could under a Republican. And I'm not trying to, be all on President Obama on this, but he's done a fairly decent job here, and it's time to give him credit for what he's done. 60 years ago, President Obama says that we didn't deny science. When Sputnik was up in space, we didn't deny it. We basically built a space program overnight. So it's baffling that in this day and age, we look at climate change. And the scientists who have done the work, who have conducted the studies, who have the data to back up their claims, we call them liars. We have elected officials who bring in snowballs into Congress and say climate change isn't real because this snowball exists. We had 2015 was one of the hottest years on record. And we still have people who deny this, who deny that man had any reason to be involved in it, and that this is just something that the planet normally does, so don't worry about it. But one of the things that we need to do is invest more in clean energy. And President Obama says that clean energy is disputed by our elected officials, and that we need to work to change that. And one of the neat things is we have more job potential in clean energy than we do in the dirty energies, coal and oil. And that's not saying that, coal and oil has 50,000 jobs, and clean energy could have 75,000 jobs. But if you invest in clean energy, then you're going to lose those 50,000 jobs. No. If by 2050, if we were to make even 25% of our energy be clean energy, what we would get is a surplus of 100,000 jobs, the last numbers that I had read. It may have changed since then because we've added a lot more green energy on today, and things are a lot more efficient than maybe the last time that I saw this number come out. So we have wind energy is actually cheaper now than it was 7 years ago. And we have more people employed now by solar energy than we do by coal. So why wouldn't we want to continue down this trend? We are going to continue down this trend. And one of the really neat things, and a lot of people don't give President Obama credit for this, and I'm surprised that he didn't talk more about it, is that the clean energy program that he had started, it is one of the only programs that the United States has on a national level that actually generates income now, far ahead of when it had projected. The first year and a half, yeah, it lost money. We had Solyndra. They had went bankrupt. Tons of money was lost in this. But we've gotten smarter on who to lend money to under this program. And we've gained so much money back from this. We're actually profitable on this program. And we're in the black, not the red for the clean energy program. Since President Obama has come into office and we've invested more in clean energy, we've actually got to reduce our dependency on foreign oil by 60%. That allows us to have the low gas prices that we have today. I'm going back to what I had said about the military, how we have 14,000 troops in Iraq and Afghanistan. We still spend more on our military than any other nation. We have more intelligence on what's going on around the world, and we have a better eye and grasp on anything than any other nation around the world. President Obama, and I have to look this up a little bit later, but I'm doing the podcast directly after his State of the Union address. He says that we spend more than the next 8 combined countries on military, and that we're still the leaders of the world. So that's something that's highly impressive. If that's actually true, it might actually be like a 7.5. But that's an insane amount of money that we spend on the military for not being in war. So, but one of the things that he says regarding ISIS and terrorism is that if we continue to single out people because of their faith or because of their background or where they were born from, it's playing exactly into the hands of ISIS, because ISIS is able to use the internet. They're able to recruit people because they're able to say, oh, see what your leader over there has done? He's made you against everybody else. He singled you out. He says that you're worthless and that you're nothing and you are nothing more than a terrorist. So why not become a terrorist? Is basically the message of their videos and basically their targeting practices. But if we continue down that path, then we're going to have a larger terrorist organization that's ISIS. We're going to have new groups pop up because they say, oh, well, no, the Americans hate everybody. So we need to get away from that way of thinking. We need to embrace each other. And one of the really important things that I know that conservative heads were just exploding when President Obama had mentioned this is that ISIS doesn't represent Islam, and that we need to call them for what they are. They are killers and they're fanatics. That's what they are. They're not the everyday Muslim. They're not the everyday Syrian or Iraqi or Afghani or anyone else from the Middle East. They're simply fanatics. They're people who are extremists. They're off their rocker. And they think that they're doing the right thing. They're not. Because doing the right thing is doing what's hard. And what's hard is holding your head high and protecting those around you. Not going off and committing acts of terror. So, one of the other things is we already have a coalition. We already have many nations from around the world and over in the Middle East who are helping to fight ISIS, who are aiding in our efforts. And I bring this up because there's many Republicans, especially the top contenders, who said, oh, no, if I were to fight ISIS, I don't think that I would send in troops right away. I would try to build a coalition and have the coalition go and fight ISIS. And so that way we could reduce the amount of American troops that we have to send in to war, because we've kind of found out that that's not always the best case scenario. Well, it's wonderful that they say that, because that's exactly what we're doing. It's exactly what President Obama has been doing and has been doing. We have nations who are already fighting ISIS. And one of the other things that we see is people who talk about the Iran deal. And one of the things that President Obama shows up in this State of the Union address is that Iran is actively working to make this deal better. Now, today we had Iran actually capture 2 U.S. Navy boats, I think it was. And some of the members were kind of held prisoner for a little while. But John Kerry, did his due diligence. He had already talked to Iran. And during the president's speech, we actually had these people released. So the Iran deal is working. Iran doesn't want to mess this up. Their economy was crippled and crumbling, and they were about to go and do a massive civil war, and this has helped them avert that cycle of dispute and disruption. So Iran has shipped out their uranium. They've scaled down their nuclear capabilities. They're working to get rid of even more things that we would consider to make them nuclear capable. So they're actively working towards it. So Obama says to the critics, you just don't know what you're talking about, or you're just saying this just to get more votes. And one of the last points that he talks about is that we shouldn't polarize each other. We shouldn't look at the Democrats and think that the Democrats are weak and awful. We shouldn't look at the Republicans as warmongers just for profits. We need to actively work together. And that when we polarize everything, that's how we break down. That's how we go against who we are. And we don't make progress, as we've seen in Congress over the past few years. Because Congress has been a do-nothing Congress. They haven't been moving forward. They haven't been passing policies that actually help the American people. And one of the things that breaks democracy down, President Obama says, is that when the average person feels like their voice doesn't matter, and I see this all the time. I hear it from a lot of people in the comments on Twitter. I hear it on Facebook. I hear it in everyday conversations that, oh, no, they're not going to vote because their voice doesn't matter, their vote doesn't matter. It's just whatever's going to happen is going to happen. They're all crooks and liars anyway. Well, that's why we have one of the lowest voter turnouts out of like 34 developed nations. We're one of the lowest. We're not the lowest, but we're definitely up there. I think we're around like number 31 or 30. We're very low on voter turnout because we have people who don't think that their vote matters. But we find that when people actively pay more attention to politics, when they invest more and they go out and vote, when they are taking a bigger part in the system, we have more progress, we have more change. But if you look at what's happened for corporate America, we have people who don't go to the polls. They don't go and vote. They don't go out and protest. They don't voice their opinion anymore. And if they do, it's usually amongst their friends on Facebook or Twitter. And they're not sending that out into the world for real change. They're just bickering amongst themselves. And that doesn't fix anything. We can fix things if we get everybody involved in the system. If we encourage people, it doesn't matter what party that they're for. And I'm very strong on this. It doesn't matter if you agree with what I say. As long as you're actively out there and finding out what's true and what's not, if you're actively going out there and you're voting and you're taking your friends to the poll, and it doesn't matter what party that they would vote for, or who their favorite sports team was, or who they're backing this election cycle, or whatever it may be that you guys have disagreements on. The number one point is that you got to get out there and vote, and you got to bring your friends out there to vote, because that's how you get change. That's how you get things to move forward. And one of the things that will help people to feel like their voice is actually important is to get money out of politics. We have this system that is funded by the rich. We have millions upon millions upon millions of dollars that will go into this election cycle alone. Wouldn't it be nice if maybe those millions of dollars were, I don't know, donated to cancer research or fighting diseases that the world needs to get rid of? That would be great. However, we have people who, instead of donating to charities or to those organizations that can go out and help, they're donating to a campaign. They're saying, well, I can make more money if I buy this politician. If I spend just a little bit more, I can actually have a bigger return on my business, on my profits. And if we get money out of politics, President Obama says, then we can move forward. Then we can have people have their faith restored in democracy. But up until then, well, we're just going to be sitting where we are. So let me know what you think. I covered most of the main points about what President Obama was talking about. I mean, obviously, I can't put everything in. It was a very long speech. Let me know what you thought of his speech, wherever you listen to this at, whether it's on Stitcher or Spreaker or YouTube or Tumblr or Twitter, wherever it may be. Leave me a comment. I'd like to hear from you. If I'm off my rocker, you let me know. If I said everything was fine, let me know as well. I'd love to hear it. All right, my name is Garrett Martin. Thank you so much for listening today. You can find me on Twitter at CITZSpeak. That's SitSpeak. Thank you so much again. Again, you can find me on Twitter at CITZSpeak.